This is The Drive with Dale Lolley and Matt Williamson on your 24/7 home of the black and gold. SNR, Steelers Nation Radio.
Welcome to The Drive. I am Dale Lolley, and he is the Matt Williamson. It's a Wednesday here in Pittsburgh, and Steelers back on the practice field today. So are the Raiders.
Ah, okay.
And they have made
it's a beautiful Wednesday, by the way. You didn't
yeah.
mention that part.
Probably very nice and pleasant in Vegas today, too, I would imagine. I don't know.
Who knows?
Anyways, Matt, the Raiders coming out, not even trying to sugarcoat this or hide it.
Yeah.
Aiden O'Connell will be in the starting lineup against the Pittsburgh Steelers on Sunday in Las Vegas.
Yeah, I guess I'm not surprised. I mean, I'm not saying they're cashing in their chips, but they sure look like they're looking towards tomorrow more than they are today with the Devontae Adams stuff, and you've pulled Minshew twice now. The Colts got a lot out of Minshew, but he's a very limited guy, and frankly, the Colts are a much better designed offense than the Raiders. But he does put the ball in harm's way. I don't have a great scouting report on O'Connell. I mean, I don't think he has massive strengths or weaknesses. To me, he profiles as a 10-year backup, that will retire one day with a bunch of millions in the bank and be happy, but never be the answer for anybody. And I don't think he's particularly hard to play against.
Yeah, he has appeared in 13 NFL games in his career. 10 of those are starts. He's 5-5 in his starts, and one of those starts came in a 20-14 win over the Chiefs last year in Kansas City, which sounds impressive.
Yeah.
Until you look at that game and you realize they won 20-14. He was 9 for 21 for 62 yards.
Oh, wow.
They returned a fumble for a touchdown and an interception for a touchdown.
That helps.
That helps every time. You score 2 defensive touchdowns, you'll even beat the Chiefs.
That says a lot, yeah. He has not put up big numbers. He's had a decent supporting cast over this is his second year in the league, folks. You don't remember he was a rookie.
But last year when you look down the stretch when he was playing, he was their starter for basically for the final.
When they made the coaching change.
Yeah.
They got hot, yeah.
He had Devontae Adams.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
He had,
Mayer and Myers and Josh Jacobs and and it wasn't a bad line. I mean, it was a pretty decent supporting cast. They were playing well.
I don't know that they have that this year.
I
know they don't. They're not going to have Devontae Adams.
Not going to have Devontae Adams. They do have Bowers, which is a very, very, very nice addition.
But he's not Devontae Adams.
No, 100%. And
they don't have Jacobs anymore.
I just think the team's in a way different place.
Yeah.
They were so happy to get Josh McDaniels out of the building and breath of fresh air. Everything's lighter and easier. And then you realize we're still not that good. And now maybe they're I'm hard on Pierce because I think he got a head job way too early. He's only been a coach for like 5 years. He's only been a football coach.
He was a coach in college long enough to get a NCAA sanctions against him last week.
Oh, did he? I didn't see that.
You didn't see that? Yeah.
No.
Yeah, he got show clause stuff that.
I see.
Yeah.
So he got out of that. But I do think they're kind of looking at him.
Him and Harbaugh.
Yeah. I think they're
to
kind
the
of
NFL.
That might be a NFC West thing. So I think people are starting to question him within the building too. Like, what value do you bring to the table? I mean, our defense is okay, but on game day, how much are you helping us? Are you making us a better coach? I don't know. I mean, I don't know that he's long for that position.
One thing I will say that O'Connell will do is run a little bit more.
Yeah, that's a good point.
He has 26 carries for 192 yards. That's 6.4 yards a rush per rushing attempt. He doesn't do it a lot, 2 or 3 times per game, but if he's converting first downs with his legs,
it
can hurt you.
Yeah. I think that's substantial. I did dig up his numbers. I mean, they're not great, but where was it here? I mean, even just this year, Minshew's completing 71%. O'Connell's at 59%. Average depth of target is deeper for O'Connell. He's a little bit more of a risk taker at 8.2 as opposed to 6.4 for Minshew. But yards per attempt, Minshew's at 7.2 and O'Connell's at 5.5.
He's not completing them.
He's not completing them, though, right. I mean, it's a
that
low
was something
completion rate.
We talked earlier today, and I mentioned that their deep passing game has not been there. Like anything past the sticks is they're like 6 of 15, 20 or more yards down the field. They were like 13 of 20 with 10 or more yards down the field within that 10 to 20 range, which isn't they're not swinging and hitting a lot of pitches that are in that range. Everything is more close to the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, and I just double checked too. Minshew does not have a rushing attempt this year. I mean, he hasn't played a ton, but O'Connell doesn't have a rushing attempt this year. I mean, Minshew has 11, but he hasn't played a ton either. I mean, he's coming in relief duty. Am I right on that? Are you looking at the same stuff?
I'm looking. Oh, I was looking. You know what? I was looking at the wrong stuff before. I'm looking at his sack yards.
Oh no!
So that's 26.
He can move a little bit around.
26 for 192. He has 17 carries for 11 yards. I
apologize
for his career.
Yeah, okay.
I am completely wrong. He is not a runner.
He's not a runner. I mean, he can. I mean, he's not a terrible athlete, but he has not have a rushing attempt this year. And Minshew only has 11.
He does not.
I mean, So,
and even last year, I'm just looking at this here now that I've got the right stat lines lined up here.
They'll take some sacks too.
They'll take some sacks, and his long rush for his career is 3 yards. So
wow, I would have thought he was even better than that. But yikes.
Yeah, so kind of more of a stationary target in the pocket. Now the Steelers, of course, won't have Alex Highsmith. They won't have Nick Herbig.
Yeah,
we'll see what they do at outside linebacker here on the quarterback's blind side. But the Raiders also might be starting some inexperience at right tackle if Delmar Glaze has to play.
Yeah. I want to go back to something else you were saying, too, about there's a lot of short throws. They don't really have a deep threat. You know, it's a Bowers and Myers-centric offense. Neither one runs a 4-2. You know, I mean, it's not Al Davis, give me Clifford Branch.
Yeah, run down the sideline and throw it up.
And then we were talking today about for our keys for our video tomorrow, and I went and double-checked. Their yards after the catch aren't even that good. Like that's what they're trying to do.
Yeah.
But it's not like they're the Niners with Debo and, getting them in great spots. And just watching them, I don't see a lot of routes where they hit them in stride and keep going. It's a lot of comebacks and, static stuff. It's not great.
Yeah. So we'll see. We'll see what this means for, there is a little bit of an unknown factor there. He has played in 2 games this year, and he's thrown 32 passes, so it's not completely unknown.
No. He played a lot last year.
And he played, all the way down the stretch last year. But again, the personnel different now than what it was then.
And the right tackle's not great.
And the line in general's not great.
No, it's not. And Sporting Cast is below average. The running game is non-existent. That's better than that, I guess. I mean, we said the same thing about Dallas, but they would like to run the ball, but they're very bad at it, so they have a very high pass percentage, which isn't great when you're probably have the worst quarterback situation in the league.
Well, so Zamir White didn't play last week,
right?
And so it was all Alexander Madison. He's averaging 3.9 yards per carry, and then Amir Abdullah came in, and he finished with 7 carries for 43 yards, but he had a 40-yard run.
He had a 40-yard run.
So his other 6 carries got him 3 yards.
A weird Abdullah note, and maybe just because the game was out of hand, but he's the only running back that played in the fourth quarter. So he played all 22 snaps in the fourth quarter. I assume it was just to get him out of the game.
Yeah, don't get Madison hurt as well.
Right, exactly. But, man, some of their running back numbers are so bad. I mean, their running backs are last in success rate and last with in terms of rushing attempts gaining a first down or touchdown. I mean, all their rushing numbers are at the bottom of the league.
Yeah, and on the other side of that, without Christian Wilkins in the middle of their defense, who they gave up, a lot to get from Miami, it's going to be John Jenkins and either Nestor Jade Silvera or Adam Butler.
Bunch of borderline dudes, to say the least.
And really, one of the strengths of the Steelers' offensive line should be the run blocking. It should be a power running game. And this is a game that sets up. Don't mess around with tosses and things like that to Najee Harris. Run power.
Get him going downhill. Right? Yeah. I don't want him going left and right. He's going to be the primary ball carrier. I mean, as he usually is, but the other guys behind him are questionable at best. Who knows? So he's going to get a lot of touches, really work to his strengths. And rewatching the Steeler game, no shocker, Linval Joseph was a problem, but Frazier had a really good game still. And I thought McCormick played really, really well. Like, I'm pretty confident about him being a solid right guard next year, legit starting player. You know what I mean? So that's play your strengths, and I'm sure Ciamalo will play well in his second game back too.
Yeah, I mean, I think some of last week was just him getting his legs back under him. So looking at the Steelers injury report, a lot of guys rested today. That included Najee Harris, Minkah Fitzpatrick, Isaac Seumalo, T.J. Watt, Cam Hayward, and Larry Ogunjobi.
That's a pretty long list.
None were injury related.
Okay.
Russell Wilson, a full participant,
Great.
Out there today, and I'm not giving away anything here by saying he was doing.
Looks healthy and doing everything.
Yeah,
huh?
doing everything they needed him to do in the pocket. DeMonte KZ did not practice. As Mike Tomlin said earlier in the week, he is doubtful to play this week. Yeah. He's got that ankle injury. Nick Herbig has already been declared out. He didn't practice. Alex Highsmith, same for him. Michael Pruitt, limited.
That's a step in the right direction.
A step in the right direction,
okay.
As was Jaylen Warren.
Oh,
limited.
Wow. That's great. I mean, so at a minimum, you would think those guys are back next week.
At the very least.
Yeah.
But I think there's a chance. And so the NFL has changed what they consider limited in terms of how you have to report that. If a player is working on the side with trainers, you have to list him as limited. Okay. Because he did something.
He's not just standing there in a boot or whatever.
So when you see a DMP next to a guy, he did nothing in practice.
Didn't do one thing.
Yeah.
Didn't walk on the field. Didn't do anything. Yeah. Okay.
When you see a guy is limited, that could mean he was limited taking some he could have done some position drills and things of that nature, but he also could have been working on the side with trainers and things of that nature.
So that's a pretty wide.
He could have done both.
Yeah. It's a pretty wide range, obviously. You could do very light work with a trainer.
It used to be if a guy was off working on the side with trainers, you just listed him. He didn't participate in practice.
He was just out there.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know which rule I like better, but either one. Yeah, he could have just done team or just done drill work or whatever.
Well, typically, if they do team stuff, you get a full participation.
I would assume so.
Yeah.
Because you're actually out there doing true football stuff.
Yeah. So it's worth at least keeping an eye on Warren and Pruitt, the next 2 days to see where they're at. And they could certainly use Warren for sure, but they could use Pruitt.
I'd really love to see Warren back, but Pruitt would be useful as well. There's no question. It gives them more versatility with their personnel packages, and you can get more 13, even more 14.
They haven't run the ball well without Pruitt in there.
No, they haven't. They absolutely haven't. He's more valuable than you think. He's kind of a glue guy. You know, like he can detach a little. He can be in the backfield a little. He can be in line. I don't think he's kind of a jack of all trades, master of none. But that's valuable, because there are other tight ends. We say this all the time. Hayward and Washington are two different beasts altogether, and he's like halfway in between. Yeah.
So we'll see where that goes. With that injury report the rest of this week. Of course, we don't have the Raiders injury report yet because West Coast time.
But they get their share of stuff too.
Yeah, if the Steelers, if they can get Jaylen Warren back,
I would love that.
Would be a big get. I think in the running game. I know again, you're running your offense, and Najee Harris's last couple of games again without a competent second runner.
Mm-hmm.
It hasn't looked the same without Michael Pruitt. I don't know if there's anything to this or not, but it hasn't looked the same without Michael Pruitt in there.
No, and boy, I'd love to see Warren get a bunch of carries. I almost feel like he's out of sight, out of mind for how much he contributed last year and all the things he brings to the table. He's a really, really good football
player. The third down stuff alone, how many times did they check one down to Warren? It's 3rd and 9, and he gets 10.
I think Najee played one snap on 3rd down this week, which means lesser guys are out there.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Right.
If he's going to be your every down back,
right? You got to spell him somewhere.
You got to find some way to not have him out there 100% of the snaps.
Right, and he still played a lot.
Yeah,
a lot.
And so I think in that respect, Les might that's where was he at last year? 55% of the snaps.
Something like that.
I think
he's been well over that the last couple of weeks.
And Warren was at 45%. That was a nice balance between the two.
Yeah, and they both are good at what they did, and there was a lot of value there.
Yeah, so see if they can get back to that once Jaylen Warren is back, hopefully this week.
Yeah, that's encouraging. I'd love to see him even next week. I think he's been missed.
Yeah, I do as well. Let's get to a break. He is the Matt Williamson. I am Dale Lolley. You're listening to The Drive here on the Steelers Audio Network. When we return, we'll be joined by the Lord of Living in His Fears, Bob Labriola, right after this. Welcome to The Drive. I am Dale Lolley. He is the Matt Williamson, and we are joined on the phone line now, as we are every Wednesday here in the beautiful studios here at iHeartRadio. Bob Labriola, the Lord of Living in His Fears, the Dean of Doom, and Labs, there's plenty to be living in your fears about right now.
I was just going to say, you guys all happy there in those beautiful iHeart studios yourselves? Am I the only one who is, a little bit concerned about this 2-game losing streak, maybe, and maybe even more than that, the growing injury list?
The injury list is concerning. Matt and I were just going over this week's injury report, and there were a lot of guys who weren't practicing. A lot of them were because they were resting, but at the same time, it was a who's who list of who didn't practice as opposed to who is, and it's cluster injuries, Bob. It's all at two positions right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's I get the whole injuries are part of the game. I mean, that's the way you have to look at it in this business, and I also get the next man up philosophy, because that's what you have to tell your team. I mean, you cannot be saying, oh my God,
we don't have Alex Highsmith this week, we're going to lose.
Right. Or look at all of the offensive linemen that we have lost. Either they're on injured reserve now, or they're somehow not 100%, or just getting back from the injured reserve list, or whatever. The cluster injuries, the situation at outside linebacker. It's just rosters can only absorb so much. I mean, that's all there is. It's not like college where you have 100 and plus people at practice every day. It's the injury situation is disturbing. I mean, if you were asking me to flip it around and what am I hanging my hat on this week? I'm kind of encouraged about the possibility of Russell Wilson moving his way up back onto the field. I think that I certainly have been impressed with Justin Fields, and I'm surprised in a good way at what he's been able to do and how he has improved and all of that stuff. But Russell Wilson was signed for a reason. And one of those reasons, I mean, I heard, and don't hold this against me, okay, but on Sunday in my car, because the traffic was interesting, a lot of people in and around the North Shore last Sunday for that Steelers-Cowboys game.
Yes, there were.
But I had Pursuta and Charlie Batch on Steelers postgame. And one of the points that Charlie Batch made, and I'm giving him credit for this because it really kind of sparked this in my head. The Steelers have no on-field leaders on offense.
Correct.
They don't.
Yeah. No, he's not wrong.
And I think that's, over the course of an NFL season, that has value. I think that it has value in a lot of different ways. And, Russell Wilson is the only guy who gives you that. I mean, you need it has to be a position of, well, unless you're Marquise Pouncey, you need to be, one of the premier positions. Certainly Marquise Pouncey was a premier player and person and presence, all of those things. But when you look at the Steelers offense right now, it's got to be Russell Wilson. And he really does, in my opinion, check all the boxes.
And he was voted the team captain before the season started for a reason,
Well, yeah. The way he has carried himself, what he has experienced, I really think that they need that now. And I'm not, Russell Wilson can't make up for everything, all of the weaknesses in the roster. But and I believe this about Ben Roethlisberger too, and I'm not saying they're the same kind of players or anything, but a good quarterback, a veteran, experienced quarterback who knows how to win, who has won, he's an eraser. I mean, he can erase things, bad things for your team quickly. Answering a touchdown with a touchdown, if you're having a tough time of it and your defense comes up with a takeaway in plus territory, he can stick it in the end zone quick. I mean, these are the kind of things that when you're playing good teams in the NFL on a weekly basis, it's a handful of plays that determine the outcome. And if you can get a guy who can maybe make a couple of those plays in your favor, and he's a quarterback, I think that's pretty significant.
The other thing that a veteran quarterback does, Bob, is you don't go into a half like you did last weekend, where George Pickens has 2 targets and Pat Freiermuth has none. One thing that Ben Roethlisberger always did early in games, and you'd look down at the end of the first quarter and be like, wow, they had 7 different receivers targeted in the first quarter.
Get them involved, yeah.
You get everybody involved early in the game, and that way you don't have guys kind of moping around or doing this or doing that or thinking they're not part of the game plan.
I would also think there's going to be less – botch snaps are an obvious one, but less procedural issues too.
Because – the other thing is your coordinator and your head coach are much more willing to, I won't say live on the edge or anything, but
there's more trust.
Well, yeah, you can call more things, and I don't think the restrictions are the same. For example, they would never have told Ben, don't throw in the middle of the field against Atlanta on the opener. No,
right,
you know what I mean? That's
absolutely
stupid. Right. Hey, Ben, read the field, get the ball to, so then you have more.
Don't take a sack on this play. I know that stuff already.
Yeah.
Don't bug me.
Well, yeah. and even then it didn't always work out.
It didn't always work out. Sometimes he did. Yeah.
Well, sure.
But anyway, you're more willing to, play a little looser with it. And so you have an opportunity to get the ball to more people. Maybe you have, if you convert more third downs because you're a little bit more aggressive on third downs. And then also maybe you're aggressive on first and second downs, and you're not in as many third downs as the Steelers offense has been in either. So again, this is kind of what I'm hoping for, that Russell Wilson can bring. And, kind of that's what I'm hanging my hat on right now. In terms of being optimistic.
So, Labs, I want to get back to present day in a minute, but I love chatting NFL and Steelers history with you, and this is another franchise that's rivals Dallas for Steeler history. And can you educate our younger folks listening about who Al Davis was?
Al Davis, well, if you want to just keep it Steelers Raiders, Al Davis was, I think his official title was the managing general partner or something, but Al called all the shots. And Al, in the early days of the AFL, Al was a coach.
Al and Chuck Noll were on the same coaching staff.
Yeah.
Right. So Al,
he knew football.
As the owner, as the guy who called all the shots, I mean, Al, he was involved in personnel way more than
probably any owner in history,
or
don't you
even
think?
Dan Rooney.
Yeah.
Well, maybe, maybe Jerry Jones is up there though. But historically, probably. I mean, I don't, being that wasn't what was in vogue in terms of what owners did in that era.
And not only that, but he was also. Like, they ran his philosophy offensively and defensively.
Yeah, he didn't own Home Depot and bought a team. I mean, he's
right. So anyway, but Al always believed that the NFL was against him. Him and Rozelle had the feuds, and so he believed he got screwed in the Immaculate Reception. And so that became the foundation for, the Raiders' hatred of the Steelers, and a lot of the, and once you started hating Joe Green and those people, they were really willing to hate you back.
Physicality wasn't a problem either with those two.
No,
teams.
it was not.
Yeah.
You did not need to be motivated for a game against the Raiders.
Well, no, they're the only two teams. The Steelers and Raiders in the 70s are the only two teams in NFL history that met 5 consecutive years in the playoffs.
Wow.
Think about that.
Yeah.
It's only happened to those two teams.
If the Raiders were in the NFC, it would have been Steelers-Raiders Super Bowls because,
oh yeah,
in my opinion, all those years the Raiders were the second best team in the NFL. I mean, Dallas, who they were going through to get to the Super Bowl, to me was not as significant as the path you had to travel in the AFC. And I believe, and there are significant Steelers players who believe that the 1974 AFC Championship game was the most important game in franchise history because that showed that both themselves and the Raiders and the NFL, when you can go to Oakland and beat the Raiders for a championship game after the Raiders had beaten the Dolphins, that's a statement. And that wasn't a close game, regardless of what the score was. So, that was a real butt kicking. And then, after that, it kind of got good with the, some of the sideshow stuff. I mean, Al was convinced he got screwed by the league at the Immaculate Reception. He was convinced till the day he died that the Steelers did the hocus pocus with the tarp in the 1975 AFC Championship game so that the sidelines were icy, which was where Cliff Branch liked to operate. So then,
just a little gamesmanship. There's nothing wrong with that.
Well, I mean, the writing on the footballs, the Vaseline on the footballs. I mean, I think that was 73 in Oakland. But there was a lot of just, it was very much Steelers Ravens of the 70s. Only in the 70s, what they did to Lynn Swann was criminal. No, seriously.
Literally. Yeah.
James Harrison was vilified for what he did. He never got close to what Atkinson and Tatum were doing to Swann's head over the middle off the ball. I mean, what you did in the 70s in the NFL, they'd put you in prison for now if you tried on an NFL field.
You're talking about the criminal element, Bob.
Yes, very much so. And then there was that whole thing.
For those who don't know.
For those who don't know, that Chuck Noll, he responded to that 1976 opener and said there was a criminal element in the NFL and referring to the Raiders and what they'd done to Swann in that game the day before. And then that led to the whole lawsuit thing. And, oh, man, it was, at one point, Mel Blount was suing Chuck Noll.
But Labs, even like rivalry aside, like him or hate him, he's one of the most influential people in NFL history, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's the only thing is, a lot of then Al really kind of put himself in a bad light with the other owners when he moved to LA. And then because the moving back and forth thing at that time, again, it was not as common for teams to move cities, especially a flagship city. Oakland was in the original AFL, so that whole movement in the mid '80s and stuff, that was seen as a violation of trust, I think, by the other owners from a business standpoint, and so there was that too. So Al was, yes, very influential, very much hated. I think that is a fair,
rather unique.
fair
I
assessment.
can
Yeah.
remember reading a story about the old AFL days when he was an assistant coach, and he was with the Chargers. With Chuck Noll was also on the staff, and the Chargers were, and Broncos were a rivalry back then, and one of the Broncos players had played for the Chargers at one point, and he looks up in the locker room a couple of days before the Chargers are playing, or are set to play the Broncos. And Al Davis is in the locker room pretending to be a reporter, asking players questions about scheme and stuff like that. Like, there are reasons why there are rules in place about things like that, because Al Davis
Sure.
would cross those lines.
He was a
Yeah,
spy.
I mean, even and seriously, even I remember Ron Earhart telling me, when Ron Earhart came from the Giants with Bill Cowher's inaugural staff,
Right.
and we were just BS one time, and Ron Earhart was telling me about interviewing for head coaching jobs, which he had done, before he came to the Steelers. And he said, you go to any of these teams, and then a lot of them, they'll put you up on the whiteboard and ask you to diagram some stuff. He said, when I went to Oakland, Al had like an artist's drawing pad, big white pieces of paper. And Al would give you the marker and want you to diagram it, and then he would just flip it over for the next question. So he saved all of your diagrams. So Earhart said, I did that once, and he flipped it over and he asked me another question. And he said, I did it again. He flipped it over and he asked me another one. And I told him, I said, hey, you want any more answers like this, you got to hire me. So, but I mean, that's the kind of guy Al was. I mean, he was looking for every edge he could get. He didn't care who he screwed or tried to screw, whether they were the league or make some of his own players, I'm sure. I just would imagine.
Marcus Allen.
When he was Marcus Allen, yeah. Al was ruthless, Machiavellian in a way.
But it sure seemed like a lot of those lifetime Raiders would run through a wall for him, absolutely adored him. I mean, he hired the first African-American coach. I mean,
yes.
Yeah.
And when there also was talk/rumors about an unofficial rule that for any Raiders who were inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame, Al was the presenter. Because that gave him, seriously, gave him a lot of eyeballs, a lot of exposure. And Al had, axes to grind, and he was not above using that
the bully pulpit,
that podium. Yep, at that time to make his points. Let's put it that way. So yes, Al Davis was a very unique individual, significant owner in the NFL. Oh, here's one more story. all of the merchandise partners for the league, was Starter for a while, and then Nike got involved, and those people that supply all of the uniforms and stuff to the league. Well, they had to make, the way it works is all teams have colors, primary colors, and that's what these merchandising companies make, because they can't make everything. So, but for the Raiders, you had your primary colors. So the Raiders were black and silver. So that was their primary, most of their merchandise was made up in that color scheme. But for Al, only for Al, they had to make, remember Al had the white sweatsuit?
First time I ever saw him, he was wearing that white sweatsuit, standing in my spot, in my seat in the press box, and I had to wait for Al and Al Locasio, his henchman. They're standing there looking at the field at Three River Stadium. I'm like, all right, I'll just wait.
I think he only wore black, silver, and white since this day he got employed by the Raiders.
Yeah, but I mean that particular color scheme for the Raiders was only to be made for Al.
He was the only one allowed to wear it.
Right, and they didn't sell that. You couldn't find that. Like, you could buy the jackets and stuff that Cowher wore on the side.
Right.
Starter jackets.
You could buy those. They had them, yes. because that was the whole idea behind it. You'd see, if and Cower with those starter things or, whatever, hats. I mean, and you saw that across the league, not with the Raiders, though. And, Dan Rooney wasn't a guy to wear.
Dan wasn't wearing a silver, white tracksuit.
But the jackets that Dan Rooney would wear, you could also buy those.
Yeah.
They were pretty much the main line of merchandise for each team. But no, with the Raiders, Al had his own thing. He got it. Nobody else did. And it kind of didn't adhere strictly to the letter of the rule in terms of what they were supposed to be manufacturing. So, again, there are rules, and, then there's doing what Al wants. And, a lot of times that happened.
Bob, it looks like it's definitely going to be Aiden O'Connell this weekend for the Raiders at quarterback. Got to see a little bit of him last season. He's played a handful of snaps this year, but still just a second-year guy. Does that alleviate some of your fears in this game, or does that, do you fear the unknown more?
I think even though it's the sixth week of the season, sixth game, the two quarterbacks that are playing are in the position they're in because of turnovers. And, we talked about Russell Wilson before. I'm just worried about the Steelers. Yes, he's a young quarterback and all of that stuff, but, who do you got at outside linebacker besides T.J. Watt? The reality of some of these roster weaknesses, to me, again, as I said earlier, you can only absorb so much of that stuff. And so I don't really think it has anything to do about the Raiders. Well, not anything to do, but I think it has less to do with the Raiders on Sunday and more to do with the Steelers. What are they going to be able to put out there? How coordinated is it going to be? And who's going to make the plays to help win the game?
Certainly going to be a challenge.
Right. As opposed to, what Aiden O'Connell might or might not be able to do. Who knows, man? Maybe if I'm going to believe everything I've been reading lately, maybe Davante Adams will just jump on the charter flight home back to Pittsburgh. What do you think?
Bring him back.
They're going to trade Russell Wilson for him, right?
Who knows, Dale? Maybe he'll be sitting in your seat on the plane going back to Pittsburgh.
If that's the case, then I will not be on the plane probably. I will be staying in Vegas or something. I don't know. Who knows? But we got to let you go, Bob. We appreciate your time as always, and we'll talk to you next week. That's our guest on the phone line, Bob Labriola, editor of Steelers Digest at Steelers.com. Always good stuff there. Knows Steeler history like nobody else, and, that's why we have him on. He is Matt Williamson. I'm Dale Lolley. You're listening to The Drive here on the Steelers Audio Network. Matt and I'll be back with more right after this. And welcome back. I'm Dale Lolley. He is Matt Williamson, and this is The Drive on the Steelers Audio Network. And, of course, you can hear us here from 4 to 6 live every day on Steelers Nation Radio. You can also, on-demand podcast is available on the Steelers official mobile app, and you can also watch it on YouTube. People are starting... Our YouTube numbers are down. What's going on out there, people? You should be sharing this. Let people know.
Because they lose a game or two, you guys tune out.
Jumping off the bandwagon.
Right. Fair weather.
We're here all season long.
That was fun with Labs, by the way. I like going down memory lane with some of the old stuff, too. Yeah. It's pretty interesting stuff.
Yes, you have to listen to your elders because they've seen a lot of this stuff.
It's amazing, though, to go the total opposite direction. I'm not picking on Al Davis, but his last 10 years or so on the planet until now, man, that franchise.
They were trying to run things
opposite.
Exactly the way that they had run them in the 70s.
Yep.
And the game had changed.
Game changed, right. And he got older and probably had too much power. No one's telling him no. And then he hands it down to his son, who pretty much just learned from him. And they have not been successful at all.
For a long time, when I first started covering the league and the draft and everything, if there was a fast guy in the draft, the fastest guy in the draft was going to be a Raider.
Yep, there's Hayward Bay. Raider.
It was the corner that they took the one year. I'm trying to think now.
Most of them didn't make it.
Yeah.
They were just whoever ran the best 40 at the combine.
He runs at 4.29, take him.
Yeah, yeah. They even did weird things like remember John Jett, and like they wanted to find the next Cliff Branch.
Yeah.
He was a great football player that was fast, and they would go get track stars and anyone that could run fast, and rarely did they get much out of them.
Yeah.
Like Tim Brown wasn't the fastest guy. He was a great player.
Yeah. And people may, like I mentioned the whole thing with Marcus Allen.
Mm-hmm.
Like Marcus Allen had 2 careers.
Yes.
He had his first 6 or 7 years with the Raiders, and then Al got mad at him and benched him for 2 years.
Well, Bo Jackson had something to do with that,
Bo
too.
Jackson had something to do with it, but they let him just languish on the bench. He goes to Kansas City, and all of a sudden he's a touchdown machine again.
Yeah. And he was a legend. He was one of the best backs in the league, and they treated him rough. But the Bo Jackson stuff's kind of interesting, too. Like, Bo Jackson comes out of Auburn. Tampa uses the first overall pick on him, but they weren't a model franchise either. Bo's like, nah, I'm going to play baseball. So they just wasted the first overall pick, and then Al takes him in the 7th round the next year, convinces him to come be a Raider, and he was great until he got hurt.
Yeah.
The typical Al Davis kind of move.
Because he was the fastest guy in the draft.
Yeah, and pretty good.
At 240 pounds or whatever it was at.
His highlights are insane.
Anyway, so this Raiders team not built quite like that one, ones of old. Wide receiver, you're looking at, you won't see Devontae Adams. So it's going to be Trey Tucker and Jacoby Myers.
Mm-hmm.
Like Jacoby Myers as a player.
Yeah.
But Joey Porter Jr., if they decide to match up and do that.
Yeah, and I think they will, because I don't need to find the numbers, but the last 2 weeks with Adams out, Myers is almost exclusively an outside guy now, which isn't ideal for him. He's more of a slot, do everything type. But without Adams, he's been the primary outside guy, which I think means you're getting Porter.
Yeah. Yeah. And he's the main target outside of Bowers.
Mm-hmm. They're the two.
Yeah. So they have to be, cognizant of Bowers. Michael Mayer, I don't know if he gets back to play in this game. Yeah. He's a good player, though, as well.
Absolutely. Any team would love to have him. He's an early second-round pick in that Darnell Washington loaded tight end draft.
Yeah.
But they want those two on the field all the time, Bowers and Mayer.
Yeah. The offensive line, Colton Miller, the left tackle, is average to above average at left tackle.
I'd say above. Yeah. He's their best lineman.
Yeah.
Paid well,
Then you got Cody Whitehair at left guard. Andre James. Did you figure out the pronunciation of that?
Nah, we'll just call him Andre James. I think you're probably right.
Dylan Parham, and then Thayer Mumford is their regular right tackle, but he's hurt. We'll see if he's able to come back this week. If it's not, it could be DJ Glaze, the rookie, and boy, that would be troublesome.
That would be troublesome. You described him really well yesterday, that he was drafted for another day. He's a project. His tape at Maryland isn't great.
No,
you know what I mean?
I remember looking at the draft stuff, and he gave up 8 sacks his senior year at Maryland. I'm like, you're supposed to be a
high pick.
People
right?
were talking about him being a potential first-round draft pick. I'm like, have you watched the tape?
He's a year away from being a year away.
Yeah.
Who'd you say the left guard was?
It's Cody Whitehair.
Okay, because Powers Johnson factors in. He has played.
He started 2 games. He's played in 3.
I don't know how that's going. Okay, yeah. I mean, it must not be going great.
I actually
or did he have an injury?
If you believe the Pro Football Focus grades, I actually looked these up today because
I've been meaning to, because I kind of want to see who's been lining up where on the interior.
They list him as at guard because that's what he's played, and of the guards in this year's in this year's draft, the rookies, out of all guards, he's 44th.
For Pro Football Focus.
In their grading system, you're looking at Mason McCormick.
How many snaps has he played, though?
I'm sorry, he's 63rd among guards.
Oh.
Yeah. Whereas Mason McCormick, who has played for the Steelers, about the same amount of snaps, by the way.
Okay.
They've played almost the same amount, is 43rd in their rankings.
Okay. McCormick's played well. I've not watched a lot of Powers Johnson, but I did like him coming out.
Yeah.
I thought he was a legit center prospect, and I think that was their plan, was play him at guard for a year or so, bump him inside at his most natural position. But
of all the rookie guards, actually, the only guard who ranks ahead of Mason McCormick is Dominic Pooney.
Really, he's had a really good year. Okay.
Yeah, he's. I think he's.
I thought McCormick was really good.
He's 19th. So.
Okay. No, I think they got something in McCormick.
Yeah, Frazier is number 4 among all centers.
That doesn't shock me.
Easily leads all the rookie centers.
Oh, I bet. I bet he's the number 1 rookie O lineman.
Far and away.
Long shot.
Far and away.
And it's a great tackle class, too.
Yeah.
Or at least in terms of prospects.
And yet, this is the problem with being an offensive lineman. Maybe this is another segment, but I saw some early stuff here for, offensive rookie of the years and that kind of stuff. the offensive linemen never get mentioned.
Mm-mm.
It's always skill position guys.
No chance.
I'm like,
yep.
he may be the best rookie in the league right now, not named Jaden Daniels.
Yeah, right.
Jaden Daniels is on the list for obvious reasons.
Of course.
But some of the other guys on there, I'm like, are they really having a better year
he's
than
never
Frazier?
going to beat out Neighbors or even Caleb Williams. You know, if he just plays all game. You know, I mean, it's unfortunate. I mean, it's not a glamorous position.
It is not. But people in Pittsburgh appreciate good center play.
They sure do, and they notice when it isn't so good too. The last couple of years, I heard about it. Right. They get a little spoiled. And what do you mean we don't have the best center in the league? What the heck? You know, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's get to a break. That's going to do it for hour number 1 of the drive here on the Steelers Audio Network. Matt and I will be back with hour number 2 right after this. And welcome back. I'm Dale Lolley. He is the Matt Williamson. And Matt, it is time for the Fantasy Football Focus, and it's Wednesday. We'll run around the league here and see what player news and updates we have from practices today. Yep. Before we start that, the player news of the day, Nico Collins goes to IR.
Sounds like it's probably only the 4 weeks, but it's a hamstring.
Still 4 weeks.
That's brutal. There's no doubt about it. I definitely think Schultz gets a bump. I think Dell gets a bump. Diggs gets a bump. But I don't know what
Diggs has been kind of catching balls all along.
Yeah,
though.
He's been fine. I don't know how much difference it is for him. They need Dell to step up a little bit. He's only been used on a lot of outbreaking stuff. He hasn't been, the big receiver stuff. He has not been doing, and the over the middle stuff and the deep post, things like that. I think Houston will be fine. But I mean, if we were redrafting right now, Nico would be one of the first receivers taken. I mean, it's
going to hurt your team regardless because you've been counting on him, and they're still in the same kind of holding pattern with Joe Mixon.
Yeah, I would say I don't know what we know about him either, and
still
Akers
not practicing.
hasn't done anything.
Yeah,
right.
So I don't know what's going on. I mean, this has been over a month now with Mixon sitting out.
Yeah,
they don't have a running game.
Their running game's bad, and I've picked up Akers in both the leagues, and I've used him here and there because you have to, but it's not good. He doesn't really create on his own. He's just a guy.
Devin Duvernay lands on IR today with the hamstring issue. He's not been a factor for Jacksonville, but Charvarius Ward is questionable for Thursday Night Football. Missed Monday's practice.
Afonga's out. Warner played at like 50% and uncertain if he'll play in this one in a short week on the road. That defense isn't as scary as it looks, as usual.
As I mentioned yesterday, too, their slot defense has been really bad.
Real bad. Yeah.
So keep that in mind with Jackson Smith and Jigba this week.
I think he's definitely somebody you should use.
Zach Moss with a foot injury did not practice on Wednesday.
I don't expect him to play for a couple weeks.
Yeah.
From what I understand, someone said it was a high ankle, being reported as a foot. It was one of those ones where same thing happened to Mixon. Got hurt, went off, came back in for like 2 plays, didn't do anything, and then gone.
Anytime I see foot like that, I immediately think of a Liz Frank. Those are bad.
High ankle's bad. Liz Frank's bad. Fire up Chase Brown.
Yeah.
Yeah. He'll catch some. I mean, Moss has been. It shocked me a little bit that Moss has been the primary third down guy, and they've been splitting on early carries. I thought Brown would be the third down guy. It's mostly because of protection. Yeah, I mean, that's a big reason why.
Do you worry about that part of it with Burrow then? Because they're already hurting at right tackle.
Mm-hmm. A little bit. So I just happened to hear this today, that Chase Brown has only pass blocked twice, 2 snaps this year. They haven't thrown with him in the game.
Yeah. So that's
on
definitely
purpose.
something that bears watching.
Yeah.
Mike Gesicki with a hamstring sidelined at practice Wednesday for them. Could be time to fire up our guy.
Eric All.
All in.
Brown's a good receiver. Higgins looks like his role's growing. Chase is starting to settle in. They're not hurting on pass catchers.
No, but they do throw some to the tight ends.
Yeah.
I
wonder if they go to like a Drew Sample blocker to help the right tackle more too, especially if you can't trust Moss to be out there.
Yeah. Kwity Paye.
I do like Eric All though.
Yeah. Kwity Paye limited practice on Wednesday. That'll be bear watching there. Kenny Moore also.
These guys have been hurt since the Steelers were playing.
Yeah, so definitely something to keep an eye on there for the Colts. Boye Mafe questionable for Thursday night's game for the Seattle Seahawks. That's their best pass rusher.
That's a really good player.
He's put the other guy on IR.
Yeah. And Nwasu's on IR. Murphy's still banged up too, and short week. I mean, it'd be nice if you could rest him and get 10 more days. You know,
And no Tariq Woolen for that game.
Really? Both these teams are kind of banged up.
Yeah, so that could be a little, maybe more high-scoring game than what people might think.
I think it is. I don't love Seattle's protection, but there's a lot of weapons. There's a lot of usable players.
Yeah.
Right.
So it'd be interesting to see.
Yeah, it should be a good game.
Darnell Mooney with a knee injury officially limited in Wednesday's practice.
I didn't hear that.
So
he's a hot waiver wire pickup.
Absolutely. He's gotten like a gajillion targets the last 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And really all season long, he's been a consistent target share.
I didn't know there was anything wrong with him. I don't know if that just popped up or if it's just, limiting, taking it easy on him early in the week.
Could be. But definitely bears watching.
Yeah.
As you mentioned, Byron Murphy has been ruled out for week 6.
Yeah.
Evan Ingram with a hamstring, still limited at practice on Wednesday for the Jacksonville
That's been hanging around
Jaguars.
forever.
Yeah.
They could use them. They're overseas in an early game. Interestingly, they're the away team in London. They're always the home team in London.
Yeah.
So they
Well,
actually
they stayed over there. They went last year twice. They stayed there and just stayed.
And one was home, one was away.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Darnell Savage with a quad was limited Wednesday. Tank Bigsby with the shoulder injury off the injured report, but Travis Etienne was limited Wednesday.
I think Bigby's is the one. Like if you asked me if I had to start one of the two, it would be Tank.
Yeah.
I mean, they're really trending that way.
Absolutely.
And he's bigger, and just looks better right now.
Gabe Davis
Etienne.
Gabe Davis with a knee was limited on Wednesday for the Jaguars.
Doesn't change much, but
Yeah.
Thomas is much better than him.
Noah Brown with a groin was limited Wednesday. He's with the Commanders now.
Okay.
As was Zach Ertz was rested, missed practice on Wednesday.
I thought you said arrested.
Yeah, no, he's 87 years old.
Yeah, right. They both are factors.
Yeah. Austin Eckler was limited at practice on Wednesday with a heel injury. Brian Robinson with a knee did not practice Wednesday.
Okay. Keep an eye on McLaughlin.
Not McLaughlin.
Mick something.
McNichols.
McNichols.
Christy
yes.
McNichols.
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
We talked about that. I think he's both their handcuffs.
Yes. So if one of those two guys don't go, now they play the Ravens this week.
Yeah,
Tough running back
Not
matchup.
great. Yeah.
Michael Pittman is dealing with a back issue. Unclear if he is at risk for missing Sunday's game at this point.
Okay.
That's a factor. Anthony Richardson was still limited with that oblique injury.
Mm-hmm.
If Flacco's in there,
I bet they don't rush Richardson back.
yeah,
Let's
take your
try
time.
to
Let's see if we can.
Right. You're too important. Why don't you leave him over here? But what if Pittman's out and Flacco's in? Downs might catch a million balls.
He might,
Yeah.
He might just get peppered.
Yeah.
Braden Smith with knee and ankle issues was absent from Wednesday's practice for the Colts. But Ryan Kelly, the center, was practiced in full.
Okay.
He hurt his knee and his ankle holding T.J. Watt the entire game in Indianapolis.
Nice.
Trey Sermon, a non-participant Wednesday for them with a collarbone issue.
Okay. We thinking Taylor's probably back, though?
He didn't practice today either.
Goodson's their third guy.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that
noteworthy.
matters. Yeah.
Josh Downs with a toe issue missed practice Wednesday.
Okay. Yeah, I did see he popped up.
Toes are tricky,
especially for receivers.
Especially
off,
for a slot receiver who
shifty
is
left right guy. Yeah,
that's interesting. Malik Neighbors with the concussion, still not practicing. Tomorrow will be 2 weeks.
That always worries me when it's more than a week.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think. Didn't he? And it was on a Thursday night too.
It was a Thursday night game on
the
the last play. Like the last play he was in there, it was a fourth down play, and he dove for the ball and kind of concussed himself on the play. And hasn't practiced
Slayton
since.
If he's not in again.
Yeah, if he doesn't play, Slayton fire him up.
Yeah, he matters.
Brian Burns for them with a groin injury limited on Wednesday, as was Adoree Jackson. And Devin Singletary officially limited.
I think that was good news on Singletary.
Yeah.
From what I heard, that was
he's trending in the right direction.
First time he's been back on the practice field for a while.
Yeah.
I think Tracy's going to still have a role, though.
No, I think so,
good,
too. Yeah. We mentioned Michael Mayer in the previous segment, the other talented tight end that the Raiders have. He's been away from the team with a personal issue.
He had an injury before, right?
Yeah.
And now he's got that. Doesn't look good for him to play against the Steelers, right?
Yeah.
He's important to them.
Interesting. No Myles Garrett at practice on Wednesday for the Cleveland Browns.
You could argue he was
much like he did in the game.
I can't
Although
believe
if you look at his Pro Football Focus grades from that game, they were just fine. Just fine.
Didn't make one play.
No tackles, no sacks.
Yeah.
No quarterback hits.
That defense to me, I don't know what to do with, just in fantasy. Like, are they going to step up for the team and live up to their potential, or are they going to look at Deshaun Watson and be like, I think that team is going right down the toilet.
When the head coach is continually asked questions about the underperforming quarterback,
yeah,
and he says, "No, we're sticking with Deshaun. Deshaun's our guy. The defense has to be going. Wait a second here.
Yeah,
we've seen the other guy. That's why they got rid of Flacco.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because they didn't want the locker room going, well, we were better with Joe.
Because they were.
Yeah.
And the more and more I've heard about this situation, Watson's not even like putting the work in. You know, I mean, I'm not in the building. I'm sure he's doing something, but protection stuff and all the little things. Like, I'm not really worried about it. I got 64 guaranteed.
The protection stuff. There is no protection.
No.
Their offensive line's still a mess, and.
Did you see Nick Chubb could be coming back, though? He was on the practice field today.
He's been practicing.
Yeah.
Yeah, they opened his window last week.
They asked Stefanski about it, and he said something like, crazier things have happened that he could play this week.
He's not playing.
There's no way he's playing.
No.
But would you pick him up if nobody drafted him?
He probably got drafted.
I'm shocked he's back this early.
We're 6 weeks in. They got a bye coming up in a couple of weeks. I think he comes back after the bye.
Mm-hmm. The offense is so bad. I'm not even sure how fantasy relevant
at this point. Again, how safe is Stefanski within his job? That's the thing. They're paying Chubb nothing this year.
No, I know, which speaks volumes.
Yeah, I just don't know what he's got left.
I can't believe he's
and I don't know
what they
want to. I don't know what they want to put him out there behind that offensive line.
If they're 1-7 when he's ready, then why bother? You know what I mean? But. I don't know. I don't know what to do with him.
I can't imagine he plays this week. I just can't.
I can't imagine he plays this week.
No. A.J. Brown with the hamstring practicing Wednesday. So
sounds
it looks
like him and
be
Smith
back.
and Lane Johnson should all be back, and they get the Brownies.
Actually, Devontae Smith with a concussion was practicing. David Njoku, however, not on the field today for the Browns.
Wow. Can you use him or Cooper or anybody?
You can't use it.
I mean, it's
their
their
best passing options right now are the running backs.
Yeah.
They throw the ball. Jerome Ford can't run anywhere, but they just dump it off to him. It might be 6 catches for 17 yards, but it gets you something in fantasy.
It's something, right. No, that's a good point. That's the only thing that's kind of working.
Yeah, because Watson's running for his life. He can't complete passes down the field, and he can't see. He doesn't see anything. He's not seeing stuff.
His accuracy is really poor.
Everything's bad. Dameon Pierce with a hamstring injury, expected to play in Week 6.
You think? I assume he bumps Akers.
I would think so. Akers has done nothing.
Done 0. He's averaging like 2 yards a carry or something.
Yeah.
Right.
So
maybe that's a little boost for them.
Deontay Johnson with an ankle was limited again on Wednesday at practice. That's been the case for him the last couple of weeks. He's played and been fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, so don't worry about that one. Xavier Legette's dealing with a shoulder issue for the Carolina Panthers. He practiced in full today.
Okay. I thought he left that game and didn't return, but that doesn't mean anything. They wouldn't be bad.
Christian Watson with the ankle injury returned to practice Wednesday. Are you trusting Christian Watson at this point? I don't.
Not really. I think Dobbs is back, too. I think that everybody's mended fences or whatever. I still think Wicks is the second guy to own.
Yeah.
Definitely
Reed's the number.
Reed's the number 1.
Reed's a borderline. He's a high end 2 right now in fantasy football.
Yeah. He's a really good prospect right now. He's running away from the pack.
Let's see. Anything? Denzel Ward also not practicing Wednesday he's dealing with a hamstring injury.
Yeah.
They got issues. Deontay Foreman also did not practice.
I mean, guys like Ward that have been around the block, if they're questionable, am I really going out there right now? You know what I mean? Like, I think that's the attitude that's sweeping that building.
Yeah. They're not known for being in it to win it.
Just because Watson's, if you're not going to put the best guy out there, why should I go out there?
Well, I mean, when the franchise loses so many, again, this is why I always argued when people were talking about, when Roethlisberger retired, Steelers just need to blow it up. Trade T.J. Watt, trade Cam Hayward, get rid of all these guys because you're not winning anything. Blow it up and start over. The problem with blowing things up and starting over is there's no guarantee you get back to
right
that level.
Or even
Look at the Giants.
The feeling in the room.
And
right.
you have to have
Browns.
some adults in the room, as Bob was saying, to kind of teach the young guys how here's how we do things.
Cam Hayward. And, exactly. Yeah, and if you're trading Cam Hayward for a 4th round pick a couple years ago to blow it up, where would you be now?
Yeah,
right.
Does you no good. So if Deontay Foreman doesn't play this weekend for Cleveland,
Ford's okay, right?
Yeah,
he's going to catch passes. If he gets 70, 80% of the snaps, there's no one else in town. You could do worse on bye weeks and stuff.
Ramondre Stevenson, not spotted at practice on Wednesday. He's got dealing with a calf issue.
Okay. Well, Gibson, I guess, is sort of useful. It's not a good offense, but
it's not.
No.
How about this one? James Cook, foot and toe issues, not practicing Wednesday.
I guess Ray Davis would be the 2.
Yeah.
A lot different usage.
Yeah.
You're not going to catch the balls.
No.
Kincaid's been so disappointing. I mean, I would think like Kincaid might get 3 more targets if Cook's on.
That would be the one who probably benefits the most. Like Davis might get 10 carries.
Yeah.
And they'll just run Josh Allen more.
Probably right. And then what's his face? Ty Johnson can catch passes too.
Right. Yeah. So there's more of a split.
This gets messy. Yeah.
Yeah. Now it's just a mess. DeAndre Hopkins got a rest day today, as did L'Jarius Sneed, as did Jeffrey Simmons. Will Levis with a shoulder injury, limited Wednesday.
Okay. They're coming off a bye, too.
Off a bye. Do we get to
last.
see some Mason Rudolph this week?
If you're a Hopkins owner,
they're playing Indianapolis.
Yeah, that's someone like Hopkins or Ridley, wide receiver 3 now.
If Mason
if
starts,
Rudolph plays,
yeah,
I think
they'll throw the football.
I'm not sure I'm going to jump on like the Chig bandwagon or anything and get that crazy, but Hopkins and Ridley, okay.
Yeah, if Mason's in there, what the heck? You could do worse, especially with buys. That's really about it in terms of the big injury news for the week here. Yeah, that's about it.
I mean, Collins on injury reserve.
That's
and stuff
huge.
That.
That's
right.
massive.
I mean, guys like Tua need to start coming back. It's starting to get some guys coming back though. I mean, so yeah. I mean, fantasy's tough right now. I mean, there's a lot of injuries and
underperforming guys too. Like if you look at the guys who were drafted in the first round.
A lot of misses.
A lot of misses or injuries or
just not living up to it.
Yeah.
Even Bijan and Breece Hall and right. Yeah, I'm trying to think.
Tyreek Hill.
Hill.
You can go on down the list of guys.
Of course, McCaffrey. Right. Yeah.
Of guys who were first round picks that just aren't performing right now.
No, I mean you buying
some of it
low
not their
on
own
those
fault.
guys. I'm kind of buying low on the Dolphins, thinking Tua will probably come back at some point because they're dirt cheap right now.
Yeah, but I don't know how much. If he comes back, I don't know. I mean, does he last long? Does he? Right. That hit was not.
And then the weather
a
starts
monster
turning.
hit. Yeah, and all of a sudden,
right.
The two.
All the problems that happen when he's healthy are still there.
Right. Yeah. So that to me, the buy low are Bijan and
Breece.
And Breece.
I could see that. I can't imagine both them being bottled up the rest of the year.
No.
I know they'd like the backups, and that's great. But throw these guys a ball. That's the key there is all the receptions.
Yeah. That's why you drafted those guys because they're going to get 300 touches. Well, neither one of them right now is on pace for 300, anything close to 300.
No, they haven't even had big games really.
Yeah, so those would be the two guys I would buy low on. It would, if you knew Tua was coming back 2 weeks from now, try to make a play for Tyreek Hill, but
Waddle.
You got to eat him 4 more weeks.
I know. Yeah, I'm trying to think of other angles like that. Like I'm not buying low on Browns. Some of these teams are bottomed out. I'm not buying low on. How about like a Christian Kirk or somebody like that that's you can get cheap or I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I've got Kirk. He got cut in our league.
Yeah, so there's some leagues you can get him for nothing.
Picked him up a couple weeks ago. He's had double-digit points in each of the last 2 weeks. So
they might be a little better than they were to start the season.
Yeah,
they were horrible to start the year. Right?
Yeah, awful. Let's get to a break. He is the Matt Williamson. I am Dale Lolley. You're listening to The Drive here on the Steelers Audio Network. Matt and I will be back with more right after this. And we are back. I'm Dale Lolley, and he is the Matt Williamson. And Matt, today on ESPN, every Wednesday, the Jeremy Fowler and Dan Graziano put out there what we're hearing around the league stuff. And one of the questions was today, which quarterback has the best chance to be traded before the November 5th deadline?
Okay.
So Jeremy Fowler mentions first Zach Wilson or Jared Stidham out of Denver.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Then Then he says that he could also, Bryce Young, somebody maybe makes a play for that. But then he says Russell Wilson's situation in Pittsburgh could crystallize this week if the Steelers opt to play him now that he is returning closer to full health. I don't think there's going to be any crystallization this week.
Okay. I mean, I assume what he's saying is if they just put Wilson in as a starter and go from here.
That would be crystallization.
That would be crystallization.
If they don't, that's not crystallization because, again, he just started practicing in full on today.
Yeah.
Today was the first time he's practiced in full in over a month.
In a long time. And the other guy's good. I mean, that's what's different than some of these other situations where, it's not like the Tua situation where the drop-off is just astronomical to a guy that shouldn't be out there. You know what I mean?
So then it goes to Graziano because they go back and forth with this thing.
Mm-hmm.
And Graziano says, I'm curious about the last passer you mentioned, which was Wilson. I was in Pittsburgh for Sunday's game against Dallas, and talking to people there, I definitely did not get the sense that Justin Fields was on thin ice with that coaching staff was looking for a reason to turn it over to Wilson. I don't know who he's talking to.
Mm-hmm.
He might not be talking
I don't think
to
Fields on thin ice, period. They're happy with
No, I think they're happy
right.
with Fields. But as Bob said in a previous hour, Russell Wilson was brought here for a reason.
Yeah, right.
To be the Steelers' starting quarterback.
Right.
He has done nothing in the time that he has been here to say that he shouldn't be the starting quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I'm happy with how Justin Fields has played.
For sure.
It doesn't mean he's played badly, but you brought Wilson here to be the adult in the room on your offense.
Yeah, and I do think the leadership on field has a lot, or experience, leadership, whatever, is definitely lacking on that side of the ball and has been for a couple of years. And I think he provides that. I think he provides better red zone passing. I think he provides better deep passing, more intricacies and above the neck stuff.
The ball comes out quicker.
Ball comes out quicker. I mean, I think Fields is about sixth in time to throw, sixth most. Now Fields done good stuff too.
No, absolutely. This is not trashing Justin Fields at all.
Contrary to popular belief in today's world, you can, if you like one, doesn't mean you hate the other.
Right.
I mean, I could roll with either one and be very, very content. And I think you could beat the Raiders with either guy. But I also would like to see Wilson too.
The interesting thing that he says here is, at least Fields offers running ability. First he says, I'm not sure how Wilson improves anything here unless there's a suddenly the running backs and the offensive line are healthy and they bring in two new wide receivers. What are you talking about?
Does that just mean they should just punt the season?
Apparently. According to Dan Graziano, NFL expert who was here for a day.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they should do. At least Fields offers some running ability. Here's the thing, Dan. They haven't been running them all that much.
They haven't been running them all that much. No, and I think there's still untapped potential there with Fields as a runner, and that he was, I don't want to say better at it, but more effective, earlier in his career. But I also think that they don't want to get to Allen either,
right.
and having him take a big hit or a shot to the head or something along those lines. And he is a very good runner, but that's not enough to win the tie to me. It really is. It's in the positive column, obviously.
As I mentioned before, and again, I am as big a Justin Fields fan as you'll see.
Mm-hmm.
I was going into the draft. I remain very much thinking that he could be a long-term guy here. But they want to run play action.
Yeah.
They want to throw the ball. They want to play action and throw the ball down the field.
Yeah.
That's Russell Wilson's game.
That's exactly what Wilson does too. And Wilson can still do the boots and design movement and all that stuff too. Like, I find it interesting that people all of a sudden think he's a bad athlete.
I don't know where this is coming from. He got rushed for over 300 yards last year. He is not, 36-year-old Ben Roethlisberger back there who couldn't get out of his own way.
No, assuming he's healthy and similar to what we saw like in camp or in Denver, he's still a plus athlete for the position.
Well, then Graziano says, the coaches and the players I've talked to there had nothing but positive things to say about Fields. No kidding.
No doubt. No doubt.
Really?
That's what
they
everyone
said.
said, right.
Positive things about their teammate.
Right,
I am
right.
shocked. Color me shocked.
And there are a lot of positive things to say about him. I mean, it sounds like he's smart, hardworking, doing everything he can.
You're 3-2, not 1-4.
Right.
You know, he's got
he's
you
not
some
the
wins.
reason that they lost the last 2 games.
No, nobody's saying that. But I think that there's some things that Russell Wilson can do that Justin Fields doesn't do at this point in his career.
I think so, and part of it's just I want to see it look different because I think it would look different with him in there.
As I mentioned, a veteran quarterback knows you got to involve everybody early in the game, and they make sure this guy gets a touch, that guy, even if it's I'm looking at you. You go to the bench. I missed you on that one. I saw you there, George.
Yeah, I went your way, right?
We'll get it the next time.
Yeah.
Or something, just the little things like that. He ends this thing. It's also worth remembering. Well, he says, I'm sticking with my prediction that Wilson never plays for the Steelers unless Fields gets hurt.
Okay.
He could play this weekend.
He could. That's a fine prediction. I mean,
it's his prediction.
Right.
That's good for him. But he said it's also possible this ends with Wilson getting released, not traded.
See, now is where he gets
now you're
crazy
off the tracks.
Right. What purpose does that serve the Steelers to release him?
I have no idea.
If they fall in love with Fields and they think they have a special player there and somebody offered you a draft pick for Wilson, I would listen. Cutting him?
Cutting him would be
no.
First of all, so I'm sure he's looking at this and going, well, the Steelers have cut other players who have they've had other guys who have forced their way out of Pittsburgh.
There's no indications of that at all.
I don't see Russell Wilson at this point in his career, when all that he talked about in the preseason, when he was signed here, how he wanted to regain his legacy and recapture his legacy. What kind of legacy does it build for you to force your way out of Pittsburgh by being a bad teammate or whatever? And I've seen nothing of him being a bad teammate.
No, zero. Quite the opposite.
Quite the opposite. He's a team captain.
Yeah.
They made him a team captain for a reason. There's no reason for him to force his way out because then what?
That's what I say. Let's say he really wants out. Where's he going to land that he's going to all of a sudden step right into the lineup, be fine, and make his legacy even better? If they trade him to Miami today, it's still going to take him 2 or 3 weeks. To get to where he needs to be. I don't. The releasing part is the craziest of it all.
This is the craziest of it all.
Right.
Why would they release?
What does that gain? He's not a big cap hit.
As much as I like Justin Fields, he has an injury history. He's missed games in his career because he does take hits.
Of course. And backup quarterbacks are more valuable than ever right now.
And backup quarterbacks, if you've watched any football games this year, when they've had to play, it's not been pretty for a lot of them.
No.
That's one of the great things about what the Steelers situation is here. You've got 2 viable starters.
And it's not like they have a 2nd or 3rd round draft pick waiting there that you want to see more of or any of that stuff, or the season shot. And Wilson's a roadblock for the young guy. That's not the case at all.
And they're a 3-quarterback team, and who else you bringing in?
Yeah.
You're going to have 3.
Wilson might be the starter week 1 next year.
Could be.
I mean, they don't know that answer yet.
Right.
Right. You need to get some answers.
Absolutely. I just thought that was clickbaity.
I mean, I could see if you're not super close to the team, who are some backups of value that I would kick the tires on in trade if I desperately needed one. That doesn't mean the Steelers are going to move them.
No.
You're right.
They're trying to win this year.
Yeah, and they're definitely not going to release them.
They're not in a well, we got to just get rid of whatever we can, sell all the pieces off that we can, and just let's get draft picks.
Yeah.
It's not where they're at.
It's not where they're at all. Or release him because he's a problem child.
Yeah, and I don't think people understand the relationship that Fields and Wilson had prior to their both joining the Steelers. When Fields was in college, he was reaching out to Russell Wilson because that's who he modeled his game after.
Yeah, that was
they
the
were
guy,
friendly
right.
before they joined the Steelers. They have talked for years.
Yeah.
He's been a mentor.
They happened to get here together, right?
Yeah. He's been a mentor. That's why Fields was really happy to come here. Oh, I get to play. I get to learn under Russell Wilson.
Presumably is the 2.
Yeah. He knew that coming in.
Yeah. And as good as he's played, he has played well. But he hasn't been lights out or without mistakes or, can't possibly imagine taking him out of the lineup.
They're still scoring 18 points a game.
Mm-hmm.
That's the bottom line.
Yeah, and they're not throwing touchdowns or scoring touchdowns. Back to touchdown passes matter. Haven't seen a lot of those. You know, again, I like him, and it amazes me how much Steeler Nation thinks that he's walks on water. I mean, there was some Kenny Pickett stuff like that too. Like, I know it's excitement because he might end up being great, and I hope he does it more than anybody. But I don't know that he gives you the best chance to win today of your two options.
Yeah, I don't know either.
Yeah,
and what I do know is that Russell Wilson was brought here to be the starter.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I know.
Yeah.
I know Mike Tomlin named him the starter at the end of training camp. That's what I know.
Mm-hmm. And he hasn't done anything negative since then.
He hasn't done anything negative since then. And I know that, again, Fields has done good things.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a question? Well, should they go with Fields? Yes, there's a question now.
There's a question, right? There's a good debate to have.
Yeah.
That's I see both sides.
But doesn't mean they're about to release Russell Wilson or trade him.
No, I would be blown away, especially the release.
Yeah.
You get nothing back for him? I mean, right. If someone blew your doors off, we'll consider it.
And I don't even know what blowing your doors off would be because I just don't know what you would get.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if he's part of a package for Davante Adams.
I understand.
All right.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah.
Right.
But
yeah,
other than that,
and if you're a team trading for him, you haven't seen any recent tape on the guy,
right?
And his calf might not be 100%.
That's the problem.
Right.
Yeah,
I mean, it's hard to trade for injured dudes.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Sometimes I just wonder, if things like this we got to fill some space this week. Let's just write that. We'll talk about the Steelers quarterback situation again because, Steeler fans get wound up about it.
Yeah,
and then you and I, guys who are in our business, then get asked about it.
See, that's what I was thinking. Like, guys in our business in other cities are like, we could send a 6th-round pick for the Steelers and get Wilson. He's about to get cut. No, that's not true.
I mean, The Athletic last week, receivers who could be had at the trade deadline, and they had George Pickens on the list.
Yeah.
Come on.
Right. I mean, if Pickens was getting flopped for Adams in some way, shape, or form, that still doesn't even solve you. You still need another one.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, maybe there's stuff going on behind the scenes with Pickens, and there's certainly probably some immaturity. Doesn't mean you got to ship him out for nothing.
Yeah. There's just and sometimes, like I have a friend that I golf with all the time, and he must just scour the internet constantly for Steeler rumors and things like that. Because every time, we'll get ready to tee off, he goes, "Did you hear about this?" I'm like, "What now?" And he'd tell me, I'm like, "Where did you read that at?"
Yeah.
And he'd be like,
it's all over Twitter.
The one day it was after the Falcons game. Steelers already regretting the hiring of Arthur Smith as offensive coordinator. And he tells me about this. I'm like, who's saying this? Who's reporting this?
Yeah.
And I look, and it's a Falcons blogger.
Okay.
So, they scored 18 points against the Falcons. They won the game. But this Falcons blogger, because he hates Arthur Smith for whatever, the Steeler fans are now seeing what we saw, It's inane stuff that's put out there by somebody. Most of the time, I don't know, Graziano and
they're
reputable.
Right.
But most of the time, it's somebody sitting in their basement, either regurgitating something that somebody else wrote and then piggybacking off of that.
Oh yeah, or I'm going to
just
throw this random
I'm
idea out there.
I'm going to throw some stuff against the wall, and then somebody picks up on it, and the next thing you know, it's a hot rumor.
Mm-hmm.
That's not a rumor.
No, that's not a rumor. And Fowler, I'm sure, has Steeler connections, and he's a good dude, and I like Jeremy, and he's not the one that said he could get released either.
Yeah.
I don't know Dan at all, but I think he's good at his job, but that makes no sense to me no matter what.
No, I just don't see that happening.
No, it's not a logical move for the team.
There's a much better chance that Russell Wilson starts in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Than there is him being released.
Yes, I think that's definitely true. Not even close.
If I had, they said, okay, your next month's mortgage payment is going on one or the other. I'm going to go with starting next week,
and it would pay 1/10 of what you bet. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's an easy one.
And I'm not saying, I don't even know that that's the case. I'm just saying that one's much more likely to happen than him being released.
Than him being cut. Come on, that seems crazy.
Yeah. Anyways, let's get to a break. He is the Matt Williamson. I am Dale Lolley. You're listening to The Drive here on the Steelers Audio Network. When we come back, I had a chance to sit down with, one of the defensive heroes of last Sunday's game.
All right.
There weren't many, but this one was, and we'll see what he had to say when we come back right after this. Welcome back. I'm Dale Lolley, and he is the Matt Williamson. And Matt, one of the kind of the unsung heroes in last week's game for the Steelers was defensive lineman Isaiah Loudermilk. Big block field goal there that kept the game within reach.
Yeah, it's a huge play, right?
Huge play. And one of the 3 stops the Steelers had in the first half of that game in the red zone. And he also was asked to play some outside linebacker in that game, late in that game.
Not ideal, right?
It's not ideal, but
somebody's got to do it, and that was a choice.
Yeah, he was able to do it. I mean, he's a bigger body guy, but he's tall and long. But as Mike Tomlin said earlier in the week, like we use him on special teams, like covering kicks and stuff like that, because he's an athletic guy.
Yeah, I mean, they traded up for him a couple years ago as a project, and he hasn't quite fulfilled that, But he was a
first-round
pick,
pick,
right. And he stuck around. Do you think we'll see him lined up on the edge in this game?
There's some potential for that.
I doubt that's a plan number one.
Yeah,
right.
There's always that potential there because there's a lot of unknown there right now for the Steelers.
And at least he's done it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I had an opportunity to sit down with him earlier today, and we chatted about the block kick and all this stuff, and his relationship with Cam Hayward and how he watches Hayward. Getting back to what we talked about earlier in the show about guys who,
Yet another Wisconsin dude on that defense, too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So let's hear what Isaiah Loudermilk, Isaiah with 2 H's, had to say. So did you know you had the block the other night?
Yeah, I had felt it this time. But just slightly. I felt it a little bit, but I had assumed I got it, so start celebrating.
Was that something you guys saw on tape, or was that just something that was just kind of happened?
Something that kind of happens. You go after every field goal,
right?
But you don't get every field goal. But no, it was just we go after it every time, and that time it just happened to go right where my hand was. So. Lucky for that.
Yeah. In terms of what you did during the game, you actually had to bump outside and do some outside linebacker stuff. Is that, really you're in a 4-man package up front. It's not that big of a stress for you there, is it?
No, because we're in 5 techs quite a bit.
Yeah.
And being out there is similar to that, especially on passing downs. The only thing really different is chips. I've happened to get chipped out there. Probably expecting TJ to be out there. But that's really the biggest thing. Maybe a little bit more space, but it's the same as when we're in a 5 tech.
Yeah.
Really, when it starts getting different, is dropping and stuff like that. But I didn't have to do any of that, so good on that.
You practicing your drops this week?
No. We'll see how the week goes. Yeah.
With one of the biggest things it seems like that it's expected out of the edge guys when you're out there is to set the edge. Is that different than playing it inside, when you're DT?
Not a whole lot. Because on the inside, say we're that 3 tech, we're trying to set the edge from the 3.
Yeah.
So it's just, it's very similar. Same hand usage. Shedding blocks is the same. There might just be a little bit more space, but really it's no different than if I was in a 3. I'm trying to set the edge from there too. So really not like a big drastic difference.
One of the things that TA always kind of lodge you about is that you're always assignment center. Is that something that the layman would understand in terms of, if you're doing your job, that means everybody else around you can do their job as well.
Yeah, that's been a big part of my game since college. I like to be fundamentally sound, use my hands. I feel like that's where my advantage is, being a taller guy. It's being fundamental and using my hands, and that translates all along the line. Because if you can do that and you trust the person next to you is doing the same thing, playing fundamental, then all those holes will close up, nowhere to run. A little different in pass rush, just because you really got to put a move on. But in terms of the run, just playing with fundamentals. Regardless of where you're at, we'll always solve problems.
So make it easier playing next to the Cam when you're out there on the edge.
Oh yeah. Well, didn't have a whole lot of plays out there, but I'm sure he makes it easier for us inside too. So and vice versa with TJ outside, he makes it easier for the guys inside. Just as long as we're all working together.
Does it surprise you he's still playing at the highest level as he is at his age?
No, I mean, I see him every day. I see what he's capable of every day, and I have for the last 3 years. So I don't know, I feel like everyone feels the same. We see what he can do, and come game day, we can really see what he can do. And he's still an elite inside guy. I think he will be for a while.
Is that because the technical part of his game? I mean, can you take some, like, hey, if I play technically sound, I might be able to play in this league a long time?
Oh yeah. I think that's a big part of it. I mean, and the fact that he's just crazy strong, and being so technical, so fundamental, and also, being crazy athletic and big and strong helps a lot. I think that's why, you see when he does, and I'd say almost all the time he's very fundamentally sound. He has been for a long time in this league. But when you see him play that way and dominate people, kind of gives you an idea. If you do play technically sound, you can still shed blocks and make plays that aren't in your gap. You can still kind of make those splash plays while playing within the defense. Yeah. And he's done that for a while. So, yeah.
A long time.
Oh yeah, very long time.
Thanks, Isaiah.
Yeah, no problem.
That was Steelers defensive lineman Isaiah Loudermilk with me earlier today. Again, maybe more of a role this week with some of the injuries they have on the defensive front. And, you get into those nickel situations, nickel and dime. Your defensive front, really, those 4 down guys up front are really kind of all defensive linemen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, last week was, break glass in case of emergency situation, and, he stepped up. This week it might be like, well, we're going to play more of a 4-man front with a heavier end on the defensive right, and we've talked about maybe
set the edge,
Hayward,
do those kind of things.
Yeah, and you're not going to be Von Miller coming off the edge or anything like that, but I'm not sure you have to be,
Yeah.
Secure the edge and battle it out with Miller and, go from there.
Yeah, do those kind of things. But, Matt, that's
block some more kicks.
Yeah, block another kick. That would
right?
be good.
That'd be good.
That's going to do it for our show today.
Good one.
Absolutely. Well, for my partner, Matt Williamson, for Justin Miller here on site, keeping us on the air, and for Tyler Vittmeyer, keeping our video online and making sure it gets up on YouTube, I'm Dale Lolley. We thank you for listening to this edition of The Drive on the Steelers Audio Network.
Steelers football happens here. The Pittsburgh Steelers Audio Network.